Hi, my name is Bridget Castelluccio, Digital Learning Consultant from Grantwood AEA, here with another accessibility tip and trick. We are going to talk about color contrast. So when we look at our digital accessibility checklist, number 2 is color contrast. That includes considering built-in color contrast features in different templates, thinking about using dark colors and light backgrounds, and we will focus on a WebAIM contrast checker. So with tip number 2, please consider with color contrast that it refers to color differences between text and backgrounds, but that also includes text on images, text on icons, and also when you have buttons if you're doing something that's interactive. Using sufficient contrast really makes it easier for everyone. So when we're thinking about people with low vision, color blindness, or some type of color vision deficiency, when we are mindful about designing with empathy and considering color contrast, it really helps people see the text more clearly. We will not watch the video about web accessibility color contrast, but we will include it in the show notes. Here are a few hints. Color contrast choices do really make a big difference. As you can see from some of my examples, some might be harder to read, maybe some are not as pleasing to the eye, and maybe a few of you, there's some that you can't distinguish because you are one of many that may have various level of color blindness. It's important to avoid the light gray text on white background. Any type of color contrast, our goal is to help the user understand and read the text. We tend to use colors to convey meaning, but when there's color blindness or low vision disabilities, then that makes that meaning harder to obtain. And this hint is great for all visual differences, anyone with attention differences. So when checking color contrast, you can take a deep dive into a great tool called WebAIM Contrast Checker. Again, we will include that in our notes. The higher the contrast, the easier it is to distinguish. The site will also show you a pass or a fail with the colors, as well as talking about the size. Now, the recommended ratio for color contrast is a minimum of 4.5 to 1. We also will include several tools that will help you get those color codes. Another thing to consider is what it might look like for someone with color blindness. So there is a color blindness simulator so that you can see what various contrasts do with people with this barrier. So tip number 2 in accessibility is color contrast. Being mindful of how you're using colors, both in meaning, but also in that contrast, and thinking about visual differences and removing those barriers in your presentations. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your digital learning consultant.